Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. Inshallah, today we're going to be going through quite an interesting topic, and one that we've highlighted on some occasions in terms of the characters involved. And it's going back to the time of Pharaoh and of the certain people of that time of what you'd call tyranny, and looking at for people that stood out from that in a faithful guise. And inshallah, we have, again, we're delighted to have Sheikh Husayn Latifi that will expound on this further. But before that, we have Brother Ibrahim who will recite this verse in front of us, inshallah, of the Holy Quran. Brother Ibrahim, when you're ready, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وقال رجل مؤمن من آل فرعون يكتم إيمانه أتقتلون رجلا أن يقول ربي الله وقد جاءكم بالبينات من ربكم وإن يك كاذبا فعليه كذبه وإن يك صادقا يصبكم بعض الذي يعدكم إن الله لا يهدي من هو مسرف كذاب صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد. Ahsantu Ibrahim. Sheikh Husayn Latifi, we are awaiting your pearls of wisdom, inshallah.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyid al-Anbiya wal Mursaleen Muhammadin wa ala tayyibin al-Tahirin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you, Brother Ahmad, and also Brother Ibrahim for the beautiful recitation. Yes, tonight, inshallah, or today, depending on the region, we are talking about the one story in the Holy Quran that has been mentioned in our riwayat for different occasions. And that story falls in Juz 24, and today was the 24th of Ramadan. The story of Mu'minu al Firawns, the believer in Firawns people or Firawns clan. In our riwayat, his name has been said to be Hizqil. There are two Hizqils or Eskils in English, Ezekiel in English, biblical figure that is known also in Arabic as Zal-Kafl. In Quran, Zal-Kafl is there. But this Hizqil is different than the Zal-Kafl. Most probably, it's different according to the historical accounts. Now, in our riwayat, this man has been mentioned, Mu'min al Firawns. Mostly, we refer to him as Mu'min al Firawns, and there is Mu'min al Yasin in the Surah Yasin. وَاضْرِبْ لَهُمْ مَثَلًا أَصْحَابَ الْقَرْيَةِ إِذْ جَاءَهَا الْمُرْسَلُونَ. The common characteristic in these people, in these two persons, is that they hid their faith for a long time, and then at the right moment they showed their faith and defended their faith by their own soul and by their own lives. So the story starts like this. In Surah Ghafir, which is a beautiful surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts telling us the stories of previous prophets, Prophet Nuh, and like almost always, we have the story of Prophet Musa. This time, one specific aspect of the story of Prophet Musa alayhi salam, and that is when he prevails over the magicians. We know that in the story of Prophet Musa, when he expresses and shows the miracles, especially the stick turning to a snake, Pharaoh says, this is nothing but magic. And we have good magicians, and we can counter your claim by calling upon our magicians and telling them to bring something like that. And then when the day is appointed and those magicians come, and then they show their trick but the miracle of Musa alayhi salam eats up all of those tricks, showing that this is different from that. This is real. And those people who were experts in the field, magicians, they realized that this is not a trick because they were aware of all the tricks existing in the field. So, فَلَمَّا جَاءَهُمْ بِالْحَقِّ مِنْ عِنْدِنَا, when Musa prevails in the game or the show, Pharaoh is left with no other choice but to say, let's kill Musa. Now that's something, the last resort and the first resort actually of the tyrants, that when they don't have any logic, what they do is to silence the voice of the opposite. So when Pharaoh realized that the situation is against him, he was left with no other choice but to eliminate Musa physically from the existence. وقال فرعون ذروني أقتل موسى, let me kill Musa. And he wanted to know who is there to be against the ruling of mine of killing Musa. ذروني أقتل موسى. Who is against this? وَلْيَدْعُ رَبَّهُ, and let him call his Lord, and we see what happens. And then Quran says when Musa heard Pharaoh saying this, he did ista'adha to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَقَالَ مُوسَى إِنِّي عُذْتُ بِرَبِّي وَرَبِّكُمْ. Musa felt hopeless and helpless in the presence of Pharaoh, that he expected that when I show the miracle, he would accept my claim. But now he realized, no, after I showed my miracle and the miracle that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me, he's rejecting and he is actually intending to kill me. So he says, I seek refuge to my Lord and your Lord. من كل متكبر لا يؤمن بيوم الحساب. I seek refuge to my Lord and your Lord from the danger of a mutakabbir, a selfish person who does not believe in the hereafter. Then it was the right moment that a distraction was needed. You see, so the general public opinion, it was with Musa, that they already saw that the magicians actually, they believed in Musa, and Pharaoh killed them. And Pharaoh was going to kill Musa. Public opinion had questioned, why is he? Because he prevailed in the show. But Pharaoh resorted to his power and wanted to. So in this moment, Mu'min al-Firawun comes into the scene. It is very important. We have in our ahadith for long years, he had kept his belief, his faith. He was, and why it is called al-Firawun, why is he believed to be al-Firawun in Quran? Because he was the cousin of Pharaoh, either Ibn Khal or Ibn Am. He was cousin of Pharaoh, and he was the head of the treasury of Pharaoh. And in another occasion, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala retells the story of Musa, he tells Musa, إِنَّ الْمَلَأَ يَأْتَمِرُونَ بِكَ لِيَقْتُلُوكَ, because he was in the court of Pharaoh and he heard that they are plotting actually, to kill the person who killed a Qibti, a non-Israeli or non-Israelite, talking in the ancient language, non-Israelite inhabitants of Egypt, they were called Qibtis or Egyptians, non-Israelites. So there was a fight when Musa was running away from the palace. فَوَكَزَهُ Musa was destroyed, killed. And then this person, Mu'min al-Firawun, at that time, when Musa was young, was not raised as a prophet yet, this Hizqil or Mu'min al-Firawun came to Musa and told him, إِنَّ الْمَلَأَ يَأْتَمِرُونَ بِكَ لِيَقْتُلُوكَ, people in the court or the court of Pharaoh are plotting or planning to kill you. فَخْرُجْ إِنِّي لَكَ مِنَ النَّاصِحِينَ, run away, I want good for you. So it was that time that he still had hidden his faith but helped Musa. But this time he could not help Musa but by revealing his faith. It was in this moment that Pharaoh was going to kill Musa that Hizqil, Mu'min al-Firawun, stands up and says, وقال رجل مؤمن من آل فرعون, a distraction here. يكتم إيمانه, he used to hide his faith. He says what? أتقتلون رجلا أن يقول ربي الله, are you going to kill a person only because he says my Lord is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? وقد جاءكم بالبينات من ربكم, and he has brought for you evidence, like everybody saw it in the plain day. You saw that he did what he did with the magician. وقد جاءكم بالبينات من ربكم وإن يك كاذبا فعليه كذبه. Leave him alone. If he is lying, if he is fabricating, then the bad omen or the consequence of his fabrications will fall upon him, that he will lose his reputation and he will be exposed, and you don't need to kill him just now because he already proved his case. But what if he is truthful and he is warning you, he is talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he tells you that your Lord is Allah, not Fir'aun. So he started the argument. And then he says, continues until Pharaoh comes into play. We have back and forth. It is taking place in the presence of the public opinion, and they are trying to win the opinion of people. Pharaoh was going to kill Musa, but he needed some ground for it. Like always it happens with the tyrants. They needed some ground in the mentality of people for the actions that they make and they do. They want to prepare the minds of people. Like for example, as we had it, Pharaoh said he is gonna mislead you. Again, Pharaoh comes into the discussion and says, قال فرعون ما أريكم إلا ما أرى وما أهديكم إلا سبيل الرشاد. What I think is good for us is to eliminate this person, and this is the only way of guidance that I can. And then Mu'min al-Fir'aun starts talking about the previous nations, and it shows us that the Egyptian civilization of that time, they had a kind of history. They had a kind of recorded events of the past, the punishments or what happened to previous nations or other civilizations around them. So he recounts to them what happened to them and warns them that it may befall on you as well, and also the day of judgment. And also he tells them, do you remember when Yusuf alayhi salam came to you as a prophet? We know Yusuf alayhi salam was in Egypt, Azizul Misr, and also he was a prophet, and he could get some people into faith. But the problem was that they believed after Yusuf, they had a belief that no one will come as a prophet after Yusuf. فما زلتم في شك مما جاءكم به حتى إذا هلك قلتم لم يبعث الله من بعده رسولا. When Yusuf died, you fabricated something. You said there is no prophet after Yusuf. But now Musa has come. Some 100 years are between, if I'm not mistaken, between Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam and Prophet Musa. So he continues, and then the distraction works. The distraction works. How? That Pharaoh says, okay, Ya Haman, he wants to change the subject as he sees this Mu'min al-Pharaoh is doing a good job defending Musa and the case of Musa. He says, change the discussion. Ya Haman ibn sarhan. And then the tower of Pharaoh, if you have heard, Haman, the vizier of Pharaoh, Pharaoh said, okay, Ya Haman, let's build a tower, as if it was not enough reason for us to kill Musa. So because he wanted to convince people that Musa deserved death and he is fabricating, he is not truthful, he says, okay, let us build a tower, and then we go we go to the gates of the heaven, to the sky, and see whether Musa is right or wrong, because he says his Lord is in the sky. We're going to check the sky and see what happens there. So at this moment, Mu'min al-Fir'aun could save the life of Prophet Musa by sacrificing his own life. He knew that if he reveals his faith, he's going to be dead, killed, and he was crucified, actually. And in our riwayat, he has been praised a lot because he when he hid his faith, he hid it for good reason. And when he revealed it for good reason. This is taqiyya. Taqiyya is not hypocrisy, telling otherwise. No, taqiyya is kind of tactic, you would say, that you do not expose whatever that is in your heart unnecessarily. You do not say otherwise. Like, for example, you do not say, I don't believe, or you do not act as if you don't believe. No, just you don't expose it, you don't express it, right? You keep it in your heart. In the moment that it is beneficial, that is useful, you expose it. And that's why Mu'min Alpha was very smart. He somehow used or sacrificed his faith, long hidden faith, to save the life of Prophet Musa, and he was martyred. And even on the cross, Juzu an-Nakh, not the cross actually, the trunk of palm tree, uh, when his hands were I don't know, somehow paralyzed or injured, he would still use his hands and showing people when he was giving a sermon, even on the cross, he would tell them, "Ya qawm ittabi'una ahdakum sabila ar-rashad." Follow me so that I show you the right of guidance, in opposite to what Pharaoh has said, that I know no other way of rashad, of guidance, except my way. And he says, no, do not listen. There is an alternative for the guidance path, and that is this, the path that I have chosen. So he gives his advice and nusх on the trunk of the palm tree until he dies. And وَأُفَوِّضُ أَمْرِي إِلَى اللَّهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ بَصِيرٌ بِالْعِبَادِ. We have this in our riwayat. If you're caught in a situation that you're afraid of the enemy, like for example, any person who has bad intention harming you, you recite this verse, وَأُفَوِّضُ أَمْرِي إِلَى اللَّهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ بَصِيرٌ بِالْعِبَادِ, that I entrust my affair with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He is vigilant, He is the most knowledgeable of the affairs of His servants. Verse 44 of this surah, which is surah 40 of the Holy Quran. So this concept of kitmanul iman, taqiyya, also is used in the riwayat, these story. Like there's a hadith that the person went to, I think Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, and he said, Hassan al-Basri narrates that from the Prophet, that if a person has a knowledge and hides his knowledge, then Allah curses him or something like this. And Imam Sadiq said, no, where is the story of mu'minu al Firawns yaktumu imanah? It's not something general that you always have to tell you. And sometimes if you see an occasion that when you say something, there is an effect in it. There is good result out of it. Maybe the good result is not for you. You yourself get martyred, but eventually in the greater picture, you are saving the life of a prophet. Then yes, but if it doesn't help anything, if it's in vain, then no, you keep the truth in your heart, yaktumu imana, as the story of mu'min al Fir'aun. As I said, one of the bases of the concept that they attack Shia by taqiyya, and it existed in the past also. They were attacking, they say hypocrisy, but hypocrisy is the kitman, hiding the disbelief. Yes, hiding the disbelief is nifaq, that you show belief, but in your heart you have disbelief. This is nifaq. But that some levels of iman you hide in your heart, that's even good. Some levels of spirituality you don't want to expose it to others. Some levels of understanding, some levels of basira and vision, you don't want to reveal them here and there. You save them in the right moment, for the right audience. You want to reveal that for them. That's completely okay. That's what we find in the story of Mu'min al Fir'aun and other similar stories. Okay, if there's questions or input, I'd be glad to hear.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much, Sheikhna, which was very fascinating. There's, I'm sure, lots of questions that come out of this very topic, and it's got a lot of things. Ibrahim wants to start off.
Yes, if I may. So I think it's perhaps imperative that if you are in a position of that you can influence a good outcome is to sort of, as you said, tactically hide your faith rather than, you know, always being how do you say, outwardly defensive and, you know, at least showing your cards, if a better analogy. I suppose there's a parallel as well with Abu Talib alayhi salam. And I think my question is, what is there other examples that we can also look at in history?
Well, in the history of Islam, yes, very good mention of Abu Talib. Thank you. In also the story of the people of the cave in Quran, we have actually a hadith that says Abu Talib is going to be given his reward twice because they hid their faith for a proper reason. I don't remember the Arabic, but the parallel has been actually mentioned in our riwayat. This one is the people of the cave, those who hid their faith. One is إِلَّا مَنْ أُكْرَهَ وَقَلْبُهُ مُطْمَئِنٌ بِالْإِيمَانِ, the case of Ammar bin Yasir. In Islam, also Abu Talib, the Mu'minu Ali Yasin, also وَجَاءَ رَجُلٌ مِنْ أَقْصَى الْمَدِينَةِ يَسْعَى قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ اتَّبِعُوا الْمُرْسَلِينَ. He also hid his faith for a time, and maybe other cases. But the principle of taqiyya in different stories of Quran is an established principle. There is no question about it. But the difference between taqiyya and nifaq is something that is a matter of concern for some people.
Thank you, Ibrahim, and thank you, Sheikhna, for the response. Feel free, everyone, just to, if you want to have a thought or question, I'm sure there's lots of thoughts. Sheikhna, I have a question, and this is obviously maybe an obvious question, when related to the topic of taqiyya. Now, how can one tell the right opportunity to reveal something? So if you have this, an opportunity presents itself, and you think, maybe it's good to reveal something here, or maybe not. Is there a form of criterion or is it a wisdom? What can we use to make that decision?
Yeah, it's a bit difficult. In the book of Al-Amr bil-Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar in our fiqh, Fuqaha discuss this because one of the preconditions of the obligation of Al-Amr bil-Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar is the probability of effect. And they use these, that if you see the situation fit for a reaction that has some good consequences, it is only the time that it is obligatory upon you. Otherwise, even sometimes it becomes haram to take an action because it is counterproductive. So generally, there's no, it's a mixture of different things. Apart from the spiritual furqan and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help, there's a component of social, what do they call it? The intelligence that there are different kinds of intelligence, and there's kind of intelligence that in the social behavior, some people in their socialization, in their interaction with other people, they are smarter. They, you would say that they understand different gestures, different situations, as if it stems from the experience or kind of, I don't know, sixth sense thing. So that is something. The experience is something. Complete or comprehensive understanding of different dimensions of the religious duty or the religious knowledge of things. Yes, it's not one thing that we can say, and we have this in the people, in the examples that we have in history. Like even the ulama, some of them, they were very smart in finding the right moment to take an action. Some of them might not be, for example, or some not. Let's not talk about ulama, about ourselves. Like for example, you look at a member of your community, he always makes the wrong decision at the wrong moment, or some of them, no, they so yes, it's something that some of them is fixed in the personality of a person. Some of them, they require practice and experience and being under the good direction. Like, for example, if you have a good ustad teacher, if you are having a relationship to a scholar that you can ask, sometimes consult, they can be of good help to give you correct directions in the times that you're hesitant.
Thank you, Sheikh. Is there any other thoughts or questions? I have another thing. It's related to, obviously, one of the famous stories about Pharaoh, of course, is when he was dying, he made a plea, shall we say, for forgiveness and so forth, and it was rejected. Now, a few days ago, we discussed about the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also we talked about how sometimes if we attach an intention to a regret to an old whatever misdemeanor or whatever it is, that can change the outcome of this in the future. Can we make inference from this that there was not true regret attached to this plea?
No, it was true regret actually, but the problem was, yes, it's a question raised in the tafasir, both Sunni and Shia, that Pharaoh says what exactly? It says حتى إذا أدركه الغرق. Now, when the sinking, when he was drawn completely, finished, أدركه means comprehensively covered with water. So there was no hope for him to come back to life. قال آمنت. He says, now I have faith. Now I believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أنه لا إله إلا الذي آمنت به بنو إسرائيل. The same Lord that Banu Israel are believing in. وأنا من المسلمين. I'm one of the submitters to the will of Allah. And then the call comes from Jibreel in our riwayat. الآن وقد عصيت قبل وكنت من المفسدين. Now you want to have faith. The problem with the regret of Pharaoh is not the nature or the quality of the regret. The problem is the time of the regret. Actually, it has been said also in other verses that all of the kuffar, when they die, they want to come back to life. So it's one case of the general rule that when you submit your test, there is no chance to return it. It was your time to give the test, the time that you had. So yes, I think both Sunni and Shia Mufassirun, they say, they use the adrakahul gharq, the concept of when it was finished completely. Not that when he saw death, and we have the ayah in that there is no chance for tawbah when a person sees death coming.
Simple. Thank you very much, Sheikhna. Okay, I think we need to conclude. So, Sheikhna, if you don't mind, we finish with a small conclusion, inshallah, and then a dua for tonight and these nights.
Thank you. Yes, I think the note that you said about being smart in being religious, we have it. And I mean, we have it a very little degree in our communities. Sometimes we need more of this smart cleverness, and also beside being religious, being committed to the principles of faith. Some people, they either side of this extreme. Some people, they lose on the side of the commitment. Some people, they lose on the side of making the right decision at the right time. The best example would be the lives of our Aimma, how they managed not just the belief of themselves that they were the example of faith, but also the leadership of the community of Shia during different times of persecution, of reading about the lives and the tactics that they had, like establishing the system of Wikala, or training different ashab, companions, and telling them. It actually inspires us for such quality to be at the same time committed to the principles and also smart in how and what is the best situation for the application of these principles. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq and actually that cleverness, that insight, that practical insight, that actually for sure great part of it is the tawfiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And because today was Jummah, I think it's proper that we recite the dua of the Imam of our time. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم كن لوليك الحجة بن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك ترضى وتمتعه فيها طويلا وهب لنا رأفته ورحمته ودعاءه وخير واجعلنا من خير أعوانه وأنصاره واجعلنا من المستشهدين بين يديه اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد عجل فرجه.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Thank you very much, Shaykhna. Thank you to all of you for attending. Inshallah, we'll continue tomorrow with the next reflections from the next juz'a of the Holy Quran. Until then, have a lovely iftar, inshallah, and wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Awesome.